now for a review of what's making headlines in newspapers across the world, and we're bringing in a Rise analyst, Constance Ikwoku.
Good morning, Adesua.
Good morning. Oh, see that big smile. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Okay.
TGIF.
Okay, everybody. You guys look so excited about
it. Oh,
yeah. Oh, my God. You don't want to continue working?
No.
You need to earn a living.
All work and no play.
We need that break.
I know. And let's bring in Eniola. Eniola has been away for a couple of weeks. Welcome back. I hope
we were talking about you yesterday.
Thank you. Oh, fantastic.
He traveled.
Okay.
And Eniola will be looking at the papers with us this morning. He is the chief international correspondent of the Africa Report. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day newspaper. In This Day, Man, 2013 power sector privatization unfruitful. Operators lack technical financial capacity to deliver optimally. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria says 12 years after power sector privatization, we haven't made much progress. The organization is particularly irked by increase in electricity tariffs, which it says affects the manufacturing sector and, by extension, the economy. The 10,000 megawatt installed capacity of the power sector has not been fully utilized due to the limited capacity of power generating companies, it claims. In spite of this, there has been consistent increase in tariff without commensurate supply. And Yola, let's bring you in here. Man has echoed general sentiments across the country. What more is there to say about this subject matter? It's a recurring and critical topic in our country.
You know, in December, a Senate committee also, stated the same thing. And then previously to President Tinubu also described it as a failure. So this is really not new. You look at it that most of the discos are all in financial distress. I think about 6 are currently swimming in debt. Some have been taken over by AMCON, and some have been handed over to receivers. They're about to even sell off some. But I won't only blame the discos, I will also blame government. Look at it, you recall very well that last year, AEDC was saying that about 325 million naira was owed to the disco by the presidential villa. And then you had so many government ministries and agencies owing them money too. And so when they're owed money, how do you expect them to also meet their obligations to their customers? Because all these companies, they all took debt to, deliver some of the services that they're trying to deliver. So I think there's enough blame to go around. But I agree with Man 100%. Yes, the privatization was, largely a failure.
Well, if it's likely a failure, I think that what Nigerians want to see is some progress on that front because it affects literally everything in the country. Let's move on to Daily Sun. Reps received proposals for creation of 31 new states. This is in regard to the ongoing constitution review. If created, this will increase the number of states to 67. Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu, Deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Kalu, says the House Committee on Constitution Review is looking at these proposals and remains committed to supporting legitimate efforts that align with constitutional provisions. For the decapitation of the country into bits, where does this take the country to? Existing structures haven't helped us to get to where we're going. So I don't know how this changes the dynamic for the country if we have more states. Can we even create this much more, Charles?
I think some people are trying to make a political statement or gain political mileage, or probably it's just out of selfishness. If we are going to create more states, and if you look at the dynamics, sometimes it's going to be along ethnic lines. So we're just further dividing the country with the proposal to create more states. We are not able to manage 36 properly, and then we're looking for 31 more. The idea being that some people feel that, okay, just carve out an empire so that I can be the big boy here. So most of the suggestions are probably coming from some of the ethnic minorities in the already existing states. They just want an identity, a distinct ethnic identity couched in a state. And it's the reason, most probably, why we have this demand for, 31 more states. And I think it's patently ridiculous.
Yeah, Dr. Constance, can I come in here?
Yes,
because,
please.
I was in the House of Representatives yesterday when this announcement was made. And I think there's been a lot of confusion about what the announcement is saying, actually. The House of Representatives itself is not proposing to create 31 new states. These are private, petitions sent to the House of Representatives. And the Speaker did say that some of these submissions were not made as constitutionally required by Section 8.1 of the Nigerian Constitution of 1999, and that they had until the 5th of March to resubmit these proposals, and that he's doing it so that the constitutional review process is transparent and it's clear. The House's position is not to propose 31 states. These are private Nigerians who have proposed it, who have sent in petitions to the House of Representatives, and the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, who is also the chairman of that committee, is announcing and being transparent and saying we have received proposals for 31 new states. However, some of these do not align with constitutional requirements, and this is the deadline for resubmission. But people have taken that to mean that the House itself is proposing creation of 31 states, and that is a misunderstanding of the legislative process.
Thank you so much, Adesua, for that clarification. I guess what will happen is that they will resubmit, and then we will see how the process proceeds, whether these states will actually be created. Well, let's look at the next paper, New Telegraph, another important story. FG scraps junior secondary education systems, replaces the 6334 system with 12-4 model. Says it will reform and align Nigerian system with international standards. Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alasa, has proposed this. He also sought the approval of the National Council on Education to officially adopt 16 years as a minimum entry age requirement into tertiary institutions. With this proposal, we'll now have 12 years of basic education before students head out for tertiary education. This ensures a standardized curriculum uniformly implemented across the nation, he hopes. And earlier again, how does this boost the current education system in your view? Because that's the bigger topic, right? That's the bigger discussion.
Well, I really don't know what it does to the education system directly. Probably, I think they're trying to tackle the issue of out-of-school children and all that. Because if it is 12 years straight, I think the belief is that, okay, you don't get any certification until after the 12th year. But I think we have bigger problems than that. Look, in 1982, we dumped the 654 system and adopted the 6334 system. And, that was under President Shehu Shagari. The argument was that it was going to improve the educational system and all that, but we saw that it was counterproductive at the end of the day because everyone will agree that Nigeria's educational system was better than it is today. And now we're coming up with this argument. Does it now mean that there's not going to be common entrance again? There's not going to be GSE? There's just going to be from primary 1 straight to SS3? I mean, I think they still need to give us more clarification on this. But ultimately, I think what we need is we need to increase funding in education. That is number one. And we need to attract the best hands as teachers. Because in Nigeria, you realize that most of the people who take to teaching jobs are not people who actually have passion for it. Maybe they wanted to study another course, and then this is what they got. And unlike so many other countries where teachers are very well paid, you go to countries like Finland, you go to countries like Indonesia, it's the best of the best that get the teaching jobs. So I think these are the things that we need to prioritize.
Points that you've made about the quality of teachers and of course the funding. Do we have any other thing to add, Adesua, Charles?
I think it has to do with the quality and standard of education in the country. That's where the problem lies. I mean, you change the curriculum, you change the system, you change the style. I mean, it's just about years. First of all, whether you have a 654 or whether it's a 6334, it's basically the same thing. 6 years of primary education, 6 years of secondary education. You now collapse it into one long continuum.
So it's
and
unbroken.
Then it's still the same product that you are churning out. So what difference does it make? We're just changing the numbers.
Right.
So,
Cosmetic.
absolutely, that's the word, cosmetic. It's just a cosmetic change. Change the basic issues, and then we have a good system of education. And Yola has already talked about funding and then teacher training and things like that. Not changing the numbers. It doesn't make any difference.
We don't have all the details yet because Anela talked about, does it mean that there's no longer WAEC and the other examination? So details still emerging. We'll see from next week. I think we'll have more information regarding that. Let's look at another story that is related. Can we pull up the Daily Sun again? Here it's talking about FG seeks reversal of mother tongue policy on primary schools. The reversal of mother tongue as medium of instruction from primary 1 to 6 is an appeal made by the Minister of State for Education, Professor Suwaiba Ahmad. So she's saying that the NCC had previously advocated for this policy, the use of mother tongue as medium of instruction in the first 3 years of primary school. But the minister pointed out several challenges in implementation, especially in urban areas, that we have over 500 languages. Selecting a dominant language in multilingual communities becomes a challenge, in addition to limited availability of instruction materials and textbooks, among other factors. I mean, that's a lot. It's a good idea, but one can see the challenges as enumerated by the minister. Anyone can jump in here.
I just want to clarify, is this the same Minister of State for Education that was recently saying that we should be supporting Almajiri schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no.
I don't think that.
At this, what she says is that we shouldn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. That you can, sort of work around it. That Almajiri school, there's still something they have to give because of, the religion. People are wedded to their religion, right? So you cannot completely yank it off.
Definitely. I think, when we're talking about proper accessibility to education, literacy, the reason why this language barrier is there, or supposed to help ease children into the system, is so that they're spoken to in a way that they understand. Yes, that they're in urban areas. What is the lingua franca of urban areas? Is it Pidgin? Is it Hausa in the north? Is it Yoruba in the south? These are colonial issues that we've embedded into our system, because it should be a positive thing for children who are not indigenous of an area to be able to speak the language of that area. It's something that was more common in the previous years in Nigeria. It should be a good thing if I had a child who grew up in the East, that the child is able to learn and read and speak in Igbo, regardless of whether or not that child is Igbo. And so I think sometimes we can't give ourselves shortcuts to this development issue, particularly when it comes to education and particularly when it comes to our children.
So I think the point here is, you've made very great points, but the other issue is that we need, if you make it a priority, and you need a bit of time to make sure that you have the learning materials, the instruction materials to use in school. So she talked about the textbooks, So it's a case of priority. If we're going to be using local languages in a couple of years in primary school, then you have to work ahead, making sure that you have all that you need, or the teachers and the students require, in order to make that a reality. I think that's what it is. Let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. In the Guardian, fresh inflation concern as NPA rates port charges by 15%, raises port charges by 15%. The Guardian is reporting that this is the first adjustment in 32 years meant to fund infrastructural deficit. The deteriorating state of the port and obsolete equipment. There's also the issue of automation and digitization of port transactions, port security and training. Operators say, though, this will increase the cost of doing business nationwide, and then the cost of commodities will rise. Eniola, the MPA says they need this revenue to enable the maintenance of ports and also make sure they open the eastern ports. However, we've always have less than impressive performances at our ports, and that is why a lot of operators prefer Cotonou, for instance, because they're able to move their goods faster. The question for the Nigerian Ports Authority here will be, if you increase this, does this affect the delivery of services at the ports? That's the most important thing, don't you think so?
I think you and I know the answer to that question, that it's not going to improve anything. look around, customs, they've been declaring huge profits, They've all been exceeding their targets. Have you seen any improvement in the conduct of customs and the process of payment of duty and all that? There's none. You look at the power sector too. They increased their tariffs. Have you seen any improvements? There's none. So all this argument of it's going to improve service delivery is just talk. And man has already explained it as the Manufacturers Association. It's going to increase the cost of clearing goods, and it's going to be the final cost is going to be borne by the customer, the consumer at the end of the day. They're saying that they have not increased it in the last 30 years. Why didn't they increase it maybe like 2019 when we had relative economic stability? Right now you're having so many problems. Inflation is at an all-time high at the moment. And one would have expected that maybe the Minister of Finance would have stepped in by now because, well, he's the coordinating Minister of the Economy. So we expected a whole of government approach whereby, everything moves together like one organism. But we're not seeing that. Everybody's just doing their own thing, disjointed all over the place. So I don't think there's going to be any improvement whatsoever. That's just mere talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, Eniola, that, when the president was increasing the budget a couple of days ago and says they're hitting new, exciting revenue targets, I said, wow, more is coming.
To the detriment of the operators or people that use the ports, actually. So they have these bottlenecks from customs, immigrations, NDLEA, and a host of other agencies. The point is always to make the money, to generate the revenue, but you are not looking at how that affects businesses that use the ports. It's unfortunate. Let's move on to international headlines quickly. The Citizen newspaper. America may be deal-making. South African analysts said threat to cut funding to SA and boycott of G20 may be tactical moves. The U.S. Secretary of State has decided not to attend the G20 meeting in South Africa of foreign ministers. Experts say South Africa's alignment with Russia and China is a cause of concern to the United States. President Donald Trump, who is considered a deal maker, may be using carrots and sticks to get his way. Rubio had said on X, "My job is to advance America's national interests, not to waste taxpayer money or coddle anti-Americanism." Yolanda, well, Rubio has, he said what he talked about American interests. What about South African and African interests? Does he think that other people don't have interest to advance as well?
Well, Rubio has said what he said, but at this point, I don't know if we are coming or going with this South African and American news, because we've been speaking about it in the past couple of days, and it seems like there's a push and pull, and like you said, there's this sort of like a carrot dangling ahead. A few, was it weeks ago, we had the issue with the land issue with South Africa and America, Trump opposing that. So I really can't make sense of this. I can't understand if this is just diplomatic talk. Are they really trying to look at ways to work together? Elon Musk is also very big in the energy sector as well. So could this be a possible plus for South Africa with the electricity issues that they've been having? I don't know.
Well, I mean, South Africa is at the center of BRICS. So an alternative multilateral group, that is emerging. So I don't think that this is going to sway South Africa very much. I mean, there are other members of G20 as well. There's Japan, there's the United Kingdom, there's China. There are other people. So if the United States doesn't attend, is this a big deal, Eniola, do you think?
The United States is the big masquerade. So obviously, whenever they're not there, their absence is always very palpable. But I'll say something. This meddling in South Africa and all that, I mean, it's really disheartening. Everyone knows that Elon Musk is behind the so-called sanctions against South Africa. But of course, won't blame only him. You know that in recent months, we've seen how South Africa has been doing. They took Netanyahu before the ICC, and they got a judgment where there was an order that anywhere he's found, he should be arrested. So that's on one side. Secondly, South Africa is the one championing BRICS in Africa.
Right.
And Trump has already said any country that is, with BRICS is going to deal with. So at the end of the day, you realize that it's just. What do I say? What do I call it now? it's just vendetta against South Africa.
All right, let's move on to Daily Mail. The UK papers, are eating up the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer this morning. An interesting headline: bank cuts rate, but forecasts flatlining growth with rising inflation as Labour takes us back to 70s nightmare. New era of stagflation rather, thanks to Reeves' ruinous budget. Now to Rachel Reeves, is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Her budget is being questioned as the Bank of England has slashed its growth predictions for the country to 0.75%. Stagflation is a phenomenon that hit UK economy in the 70s when inflation toppled 20% while the economy shrank. There are fears Britain may be going back to that era. Again, Yolanda, Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer can't seem to catch a break. It's been one thing or the other since they came into power, since Labour, took power.
The first thing that jumps out at me from this is the recent advert that was put out by Kemi Badenoch. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit cynical, but I think it kind of ties in with this. There's a lot going on, and it doesn't come as a surprise with what's happening with the UK economy. A lot of the economies at this point are struggling, and they're in the areas of policy making, and economists and just long-term outlook for the UK just looks bleak. So to tie in with the comment that I made about Kemi Badenoch, it doesn't look very good for England right now.
Okay.
It may be so inwardly, but for the rest of the world, it's not a very good view.
Okay, all right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Eniola Akinkuotu, for joining us today. He's the Chief International Correspondent of the Africa Report. Thank you for joining us for the Paper Review.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Dr. Constance. But finally, before we conclude the bulletin, President Bola Tinubu has congratulated our very own Mr. Adebayo Awoshemo, the Deputy Managing Director of Arise News, on his 70th birthday. In a statement by his Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the President honored the veteran journalist and public relations consultant for his service to the nation, highlighting his career at the Nigerian Television Authority. He also highlighted that as Deputy Managing Director at Arise Television, Awoshemo has shaped narratives about Nigeria and enhanced its domestic and international image.
Well, happy birthday to Mr. B, our very, very own. Congratulations on making a huge impression and effect on the Nigerian people. It's all the time we have for you here on Daybreak. I am Adesua Giwa Osage.
A very happy birthday to our own Mr. B. He does look good at 70. I'm Charles Eruka. It's goodbye from me.
Absolutely. He looks phenomenal. Well done, Mr. B. I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.